I'm Cole. Welcome to my office. It would be fun to give you an inside peek at what we like to think of as storytelling with data headquarters in my home office here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I thought I'd take a couple minutes and show you around. Let's start with some art. This is actually a piece done by Eric Fisher. It is data art, right? It's data driving what we're looking at here. And this is actually San Francisco, where I lived for a number of years. We actually just moved here about 3.5 years ago from the Bay Area. And my husband and I, we used to have this hanging on our living room wall where it was oriented in the same direction as the San Francisco peninsula. So you could look out the window and see some of these elements. I'll just point out a couple of things. We've got the Golden Gate Bridge here in red, Alcatraz also very red. Continue on around. I used to live up in this blue area. That's Potrero Hill, overlooking East Bay and the Giants Stadium down there in red. So if you have some ideas of, I've intentionally not told you what we're looking at here, right? The red, the blue, what data is driving this. Put your thoughts in the comments down below. Let's continue over here. This is Android. You might recognize a Google mascot of sorts. Actually, my team at Google gave me this as part of a care package when I was going on leave to care for a family member. A copy of Dwell magazine. I don't subscribe to a lot of magazines, but this is one of my must-haves. I love getting inspiration from other disciplines, and one of those is design. Product design, architecture, the design of spaces like rooms. Speaking of which, we designed this room, my office, from California. We bought the house here. It was originally built in 1929, and it needed some love. So we renovated it from afar. And it's hard to picture. This room actually used to be completely walled with this white painted shiplap. It had this weird beachy vibe that fully didn't fit in its location here in the Midwest. So we got rid of that, took it down to the studs and built it back up. And actually one of my favorite features is the tile wall. Continues upwards from a fireplace that's down on the floor there that keeps me warm during our Midwestern winters. But funny story here, my husband Randy and I were here for a quick visit from San Francisco, picking out a ton of details for the renovation. One of those things being tile. And we had looked at tile for many hours, and I still had not been able to pick one for this space. And so my husband Randy found this tile and he said, I think this is the one. And let's not just do it around the fireplace, let's do the whole wall, which at that point I was done. It's like, yeah, whatever, let's do it. And I'm so glad because it turned out beautiful and is such a nice backdrop for all of the virtual stuff that we do as well. I situated my desk in the middle of the room on purpose because it gives me such great vantage points out of both of the windows. And when you see me staring out the window or when I ponder as I'm thinking, I'm often looking at birds. Out the window behind is our chicken coop where we have 7 chickens. We eat a lot of fresh eggs. There's actually a pond out here to my right that is home to ducks. And we get geese visiting. We're also hoping, so spring has sprung here in Wisconsin. And last year we had a frequent heron visitor. We named him Henri, but we haven't seen him for many months now. I think he went south for the winter, so we're hoping that he'll be back soon. Continuing on around, we get to the book corner, including my book corners. These are some big marketing materials we have of the first 2 books. Top shelf here is also dedicated to storytelling with data, the translations. It's been translated into more than 20 languages, which blows my mind to think of people all over the world and in all these different languages reading words that I've written. It's funny too, because some, the German translation, Korean translation, the Spanish, the Portuguese, they look very similar to the original book. In other cases, liberties were taken. For example, the Italians decided to go with what looks like a man jumping out of a pie chart, which is ironic on a couple levels. The rest of the bookcase features my collection of books, data visualization related fields. Actually, we'll be taking a closer look at my bookshelf in a couple of weeks for one of our premium events in the Storytelling with Data community. So if you'd like to take part in that, maybe get a deep dive into some of the titles there and pose your questions, you can learn more about premium in the link in the description below. And that event will take place on May 6th, 2022. If we go along the bookshelf, I've got some trinkets here. It's actually a little monkey that was given to me when I did a podcast in Denmark. He hangs out here. This is actually a baby toy that I must have stolen from my children at one point. I love the colors and just the shapes, so it lends some fun there. We also actually down here have my nuclear hat. This is from my very first day at Google. It's crazy to think that it's been now over a decade since I left Google and started storytelling with data that's grown into everything you see here. Let's talk a little bit about my workspace. So this is where the magic happens, I guess. It's funny because I used to really crave an empty desk to be able to feel productive and like I could concentrate. And that had to all go out the window with all the equipment and cords that we need these days. So some must-have equipment for anybody who's doing any sort of regular video conferencing, training, that sort of stuff. A good microphone, a high-quality camera, a ring light. This is actually one of my favorite little devices that my husband turned me onto. It's called the ATEM Mini Pro. Allows me to easily switch between full camera on me, full slides, and also picture-in-picture, which has been awesome for our live events and courses that we teach. We have a list of all of the equipment that we use across the Storytelling with Data team. You'll find a link to that in the description down below. The setup's actually relatively simple here today. Just last week, we had even more going on. Simon, who's based in London, was actually in town visiting, and we sat down here and recorded a podcast together. So multiply the number of microphones, and we had cameras sort of everywhere and lights everywhere. So it was quite a production, super fun. We'll link to that podcast down in the description below as well, in case you want to check that out. I'm holding these because we were talking about tools, and this is another important piece of equipment for me, Post-it notes. I almost can't think without them anymore. I certainly can't remember anything without them anymore because all of my brain ends up out on there. And one place that they come into play majorly is in my writing. So actually what we have on the desk here is my storyboard, my ideas and organization for the final chapter of my next book, which, breaking news, I'll tell you here, I wrote the last words to last night. Right? It's done, or it's not done. The manuscript is written. There's still a lot of work to do. But if all goes well, it means there will be another book from me that you can purchase a little bit later this year. Let's continue around. Actually, more book happening on the door here. This is the chapter outline. I think, like I said, I think in Post-its. Actually, if you'd be interested in learning more about my process for planning and writing a book, let me know in the comments below. We could certainly share more on that as well. Speaking of writing, I think it's time for me to start editing. So I am going to say thank you for joining me here today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.